All right, guys, welcome back to the Promptus podcast. We're so pumped to have you here. We're so ready to learn together and grow together. I'm Gabriel, and I'm here with Chad and Zach. And today, Chad's gonna hit us up with a flippin' prompt, dude.
You prompters have asked, and we're gonna answer. Okay, today's prompt for this episode is: how did you learn to adult?
Classic, dude.
Such a classic, because nowadays
I don't feel qualified to answer this.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna throw it
Zach's
out.
Bro,
out.
I literally still feel like I'm 19. And I'm like, dude, I just started learning a year ago. Wait, I'm almost 30.
Wow, that just hit home, didn't it?
Oh my gosh, that was not something I wanted to say
Dude,
out loud.
I remember
it just came out.
I remember whenever I was in college, I was living with 3 other roommates at that time, and I realized half my other roommates did not know how to do their own laundry. That blew my mind because my parents actually gave us chores growing up, but I was so surprised by the amount of people who they weren't trained in certain ways of adulting, because whenever I went off on my own, I didn't fully appreciate my parents until I went off on my own. I remember I was like my senior year of college. I remember like texting my mom and be like, wow, I have no idea how much you've done for me, and just thank you.
Wow.
Because there was so much I just took for granted.
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Yeah, and it's just the most simple things too, like grocery shopping. How do you make a grocery list?
Yeah, dude. I mean, but that's such a good, that was actually such a smooth segue into actually talking about this. Because that was one thing I was going to say is like, there's a lot of things that you're not prepped for as a kid. And like, I think there's a lot of parents who expect their kids to kind of like learn all the skills that they need in school. But then school doesn't really prepare you that much for like the real world, you know?
No, absolutely
like,
not.
You learn how to read and math and those sort of things and quantum physics and all the rest. But stuff like how do you
Do your
taxes, do your taxes? How do you, do finances? What does a mortgage actually look like? Like stuff like that. That's,
Is it better to rent or buy a home?
yeah, just being financially literate, all that stuff is like not taught in school really. And unless your parents are proactive with teaching you that stuff, a lot of times you just don't learn it.
And it's almost like you're just supposed to learn it along the way, which I think is just a terrible idea, right?
Well, I mean, for some things, that's kind of just what you have to do. Like one of the notes I wrote down was just get out of your own way and do it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to learn by doing. But yeah. Anyway, where were you going? Okay,
I know. I was just saying that it's a terrible way, but it's almost the needed way, right? Where that's the unfortunate circumstances that we have to learn by touching the stove that it's hot. And like ideally, we wish that metaphorically speaking, that there was a lot of guardrails saying, hey, don't touch that stove. But of course, I'm speaking from learning how to adult, which is things like learning how to set up bills in your own name, how to start building credit, right?
Dude.
Didn't you go through some credit stuff when you bought your first place?
Yeah. Because I still have questions on the whole. Yeah, Zach, this is a great topic for you, bro. I feel like you've just like grown so much in the past few years. But yes, to answer your question, like there's just like credit. It was like, oh, Jess and I kind of want to buy a place soon. Like I need to start actually building some credit and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a little, and we were able to do it, but it was just such a struggle to try and.
Yeah, and you had to jump through other hoops.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Where if you were to start building credit from a younger age,
it would have been a much simpler process for him.
Yeah, I mean, I want to preface by saying that I don't know how to do adult yet, but what I have learned has been fully from like, I remember just being a kid and be like, yeah, I can't wait to own a house one day. I can't wait to have a family. I can't wait to like have my Tesla, all this stuff, right?
Can't wait to be best friends with Elon.
That's my whole vibe in this podcast is just Zach's obsessed with Elon Musk.
Bro.
That's the whole vibe. That's my brain.
With your spaceship in the background.
What I realized I had to do, like becoming more of an adult, is just like work backwards. So, hey, if I want to have a place to live, I need to make money for rent. I know that sounds really stupid because it's like super obvious, but when I was a kid, it was like, oh, you should just get places to live. And it's like, no, you got to go get a job and you need to be able to pay that rent and be on top of bills. And so, yeah, I think it's just working backwards from the things you really want and not expecting the world just to give them to you, but to actually have to put in the hard yards to get them.
That's a sad thing that
was
happens.
Big adult mind shift.
Yeah, that's a sad thing that happens a lot is like kids have no a lot of times kids grow up in families where they have no sense of what money actually is, and they kind of think it comes out of nowhere because things just show up and presents just show up for Christmas, and you know, parents just have nice cars because that, you know what I mean? And then it's like the slap in the face realization, which I feel so fortunate that my dad, like Christmas money, birthday money, all of it, we were like budgeting basically. Like we would get the money, no matter how much, if we were given like $20 for that birthday or $200 or whatever it was, 10% went to tithe.
That's cool.
And then the rest was split 50-50, 50 in savings, the 50 I got to spend. And that was just a thing growing up as a kid. Like, I need to learn how to manage my birthday money. And that really translated early on. I just kind of went into adulting with an understanding that money doesn't just fall out of trees. And yeah. So that's interesting hearing your perspective, Zach, of where you had to like logically work backwards from like, oh yeah, I need to move into somewhere. Oh wait, that costs, well, in Australia, what is it? You pay in weeks in Australia, right?
We do. We pay weekly.
That's stressful.
Well, you can pay fortnightly, but we pay weekly.
Fortnite?
Yeah. Fortnightly.
I mean, you can pay in video game?
Fortnite's every 2 weeks,
bro. He shows up to his leasing office. He's like, I challenge you to a Fortnite battle.
What's the currency in Fortnite? Is there like Fortnite coin or something?
Bucks?
I don't play it. What is it?
Yeah.
Oh, is it bucks?
Bucks or something?
I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that, Gabe, because it's not like my parents didn't teach me those things, but for whatever reason, maybe it just wasn't as obvious to me. But I felt like I had a disconnect, and I mean, you guys went through that journey with me of trying to realize like, oh, this is actually how I should steward my money a little better.
Yeah. I think that's just I'm going to say this again, but the unfortunate reality of it where for most people, you learn finances from your parents. And if your parents are good with money, then you learn how to be good with money, like with what Gabe experienced where his dad taught him how to like kind of organize and manage it. But if your parents aren't the best with money, and again, I say that with a lot of love and patience because not all parents are the same. Not all parents were taught how to even manage their own money. Right. And everyone goes through different hardships. So I'm not saying that in a judgmental way towards your parents, but that doesn't mean that your parents are teaching you healthy money habits. And so for me particularly, I remember when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, that just blew my mind.
Yeah. It completely changes your mindset on the way you view money, just dollars and how it's, yeah.
And I feel
it's
like
a great book. Highly recommend.
And I feel like there's so many similar books like that or other resources that kind of open up the door for adulting in so many ways where whether it's like, okay, like politics, we're not going to be talking about all that, but like, where do you stand? How do you learn this stuff? Right. Because it seems like in the media, they're always yelling at each other. Everyone's always yelling. So wait, so how do I learn what an actual policy is? Right. How do I actually learn these things? And thank God for YouTube. Can we just,
oh my gosh, dude. Legit.
Yes.
YouTube University.
It's a real thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
The tuition's free, baby, unless you're YouTube Premium, which thanks for liking and subscribing. Gabe's had enough.
And if you're listening on just like Apple Podcasts or something, like or rate us and rate us and leave a review.
Yeah.
And subscribe,
please. So how about this? I'm going to ask both of you this question. You can answer in whatever order. What was one of the hardest things that you learned coming into adulthood?
I was legit going to ask you the exact same question.
No way.
Had it prepped
Sorry.
to ask
Wait,
you that question.
I wonder why he was looking at me with
one,
malice. He was looking at me like
you stole it.
Flipping kidding me.
Do you want to answer it, Zach?
Let's put Gabe in the hot seat.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be the hardest, but it has to be something that you struggled with to learn how to adult in.
I think really not understanding what my values were and what I stood for, but learning how to verbalize them. Like actually thinking through it enough to verbalize it. This is a really weird example, but when
I'm like so nervous right now.
No. So, I mean, this is like kind of the tea, but when I moved out to LA, there was a girl who I like hung out with. We were supposed to hang out with like a group of friends, and then it ended up just being us two. And at the end of us hanging out, she tried to kiss me, and I was like, whoa, this is. I literally turned my head, and I didn't know what to say.
Thanks.
I'm flattered. I'll just take it as a compliment. No, but like I didn't know what to say, and I just couldn't verbalize like what I was feeling in the moment, because that wasn't like, I wasn't just gonna go around and just kiss girls who I wasn't in a relationship with. So fast forward, same situation happens again. I was able to verbalize it like I just did. I realized like, oh wait, I'm not gonna kiss someone who I'm not in a relationship with. That's like
So
my rule.
You're saying it's off the table right now.
Right now, yeah.
Like it's off.
I know. Essentially, it ended up happening again, not as like direct where she like leaned in to kiss me, but like I knew that there, like all of a sudden there was like this tension in the moment. I was like, whoa.
You can tell if there's like a lingering happening.
Yeah. So I was like, I'm not gonna. I literally said it. I was like, hey, I'm not gonna kiss you.
Dude, I said that to my now wife.
You said that to her, dude. Wow. Now look at you guys.
I'll share that story another time.
I feel weird kind of talking about these moments now that I'm married and like I have Jess and stuff like that. But I was in that moment, I was able to verbalize, and she respected that. She literally said, I really respect that, after I was like, hey, I'm not going to kiss anyone who I'm not in a relationship with. So like,
can you imagine if like she was like, hey, I hear you and I respect that, and then she went in for the kiss again? She was like, just making sure, you know.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, that was one like kind of move out of the house moment. Like I'm not living in my Christian bubble anymore. I'm in LA, just kind of like figuring it out. And that sort of thing happened. And I had to really like put my foot down and understand what I stood for, but also learn how to verbalize it. So when the time came that I needed to like communicate what it was and why I wasn't doing something or why I would do something, that I knew how to verbalize it.
Yeah.
Very like, I don't even think I've ever shared that story before.
Which is hilarious.
Yeah. But anyway.
So I think the thing that I needed to learn the most in adulthood was more of like it was like almost like a belief system, right? Where I remember whenever I went to undergrad, I started taking out student loans. And I remember I felt so indebted to this school, not because I was actually in debt, because I was, right? But I felt so like I kept putting the power in other people's hands. And so I put myself in a place of they're blessing me and I'm just grateful to be here, right? And so what I didn't realize is that I was spending tens of thousands of dollars per year to attend this university, and I would accept whatever classes they would put me in. I would accept whatever happened, right? Anything. I just was grateful to be here, and I never challenged anything. It never crossed my mind that, hey, I'm actually paying these people for a service, right? Every time I buy a textbook, I'm paying for a product, right? And these textbooks, everyone knows if you go to college, they're not cheap, right? They're like $250 a pop, and you got to buy like 8 a semester.
That's crazy, dude.
It's just crazy. And I had to learn to start valuing myself. To when I started my master's program, I was paying for it cash because I just got out of my student loans. I just paid them off. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going in debt again unless it's like for a house, right? And for me, I remember getting in a class and at that school, and they were teaching something I disagreed with, and I dropped the class. I was like, I'm out. Yeah, I was like, I'm not going to pay money to be taught something I disagree with.
Good for you.
And for me, I had to learn that, oh, wow, like as an adult, I traded this amount of hours and energy for this much money. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And then I'm taking that money and now I'm exchanging it for this, whatever it may be. I was like, wait a second. Now that I've worked for it, now that I've earned it, now that I see it, I'm not letting it go that easy. Like these people work for me. And I don't say that in a pompous way. Please, like if you're listening, like actually you are listening because you can hear me. If you're watching, listen, whatever, please hear me. Like you can be assertive without being aggressive, and you can make sure that you're being a good steward with your finances or your decisions making. Because another hard thing I had to learn about being an adult was to say no. That's such a hard thing. You don't want to hurt people's feelings. I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Zach, have you ever said no in your life? Yes.
Trick question.
Gotcha.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully have. And that was going to be my answer, bro. So that's so funny you brought that up, because that's my answer to your question, is that saying no was when I realized that but then also dealing with the consequences of that. If I'm saying no to something, I'm saying no with the intention that it could fall apart or it could be totally fine. Like, yeah, learning to say no, man.
As far as like the people's feelings kind of thing, like your relationship with them.
Yeah, fully. Like, Yeah, I used to be really a people pleaser. I think I can be a little bit now, but mainly just for my boys, just you guys. I just try and please you guys.
Let's go, baby.
But I used to be really a people pleaser. But not only that, I used to have really bad anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to really work out what my emotional intentions were, and work out, hey, if I'm going to say no, I need to be okay with what's going to come next.
Yeah, and you have to have a reason for it
I'm
too.
responsible for them. That's right, totally.
Yeah,
if
you
I'm
have
just
to
saying no because
understand.
I'm being a jerk, it's like that's my own thing to work out.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, you can't just say no for the sake of saying no. It has to be like, oh, like if, people ask to hang out or something, I'm like, no, I'm actually going to spend time with my wife tonight. Or,
Totally,
there's
exactly
like
right.
a no because like, oh, I've been working a lot and I really should rest. And I know that'd be better for me to just, stay into like whatever the no is, whether it's hanging out or I don't know, something in business or something like that.
That was something that blew my mind whenever I called my best friend Anthony to ask him some investment advice. And he was like, all right.
You're like, do you have any advice? And he was like, no.
No. And he's like, no, I can't help you at all. But he said to me, he's like, Chad, here's the only thing I can tell you is that every time you say yes to one investment, you're saying no to every other investment. And so,
dang.
if
wow.
Right. And so you better make sure that one yes is the yes you want it to be. Because, you have finite resources. You're one person. You can't be everything to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to make sure that you're really being intentional with your choices. And that's not like, don't feel extra pressure from that, but just, it helps you not overexert yourself or overcommit yourself to different situations. Cause then you start letting people down. Letting people down is not a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I had to learn that, wow, like if I say yes to this, I'm saying no to everything.
Yeah,
right?
that's wild.
It is wild.
I think an important thing too is,
hey guys, we're going to take a quick break while Gabe checks his notes.
That's actually so funny. So now that I've read my notes, I think the next thing I want to say was that don't be scared to take the next logical step that you need to take. Because I think a lot of people get caught up in the fear of something, of the fear of the unknown, really, of like, oh, I've never moved out before, so I'm not gonna, I don't know what to do. I need to get a job first. I need, like all these things, whatever it may be, or like buying your first place. Sometimes you just gotta like take that leap of faith and don't make a stupid mistake. Like if you can't financially afford something, don't buy that house or, spend your money on that. But if you can, don't be scared to do it because it's a learning process and you're going to learn so much through that process. And just the process of doing is so important, which kind of, it goes to the point that I kind of mentioned before when you were talking about like you want to learn something before you go into it. But like we have the internet, we have Google, we have YouTube, like you can research and learn a lot and just like jump into it head first and get as much knowledge as you can. And that's what I did with like all my filmmaking stuff and learning how to edit videos and do all that stuff. I just watched you. I was like, I want to learn how to make film. So I just dove into the learning process and watched tons of YouTube videos and went out and practiced and like just kind of kept doing that, like learning, practicing, making stuff, putting it out. And now I look back at a lot of the stuff I did at the beginning and it was like, I'm like, oh, like it's not that good.
It's still pretty good.
But thanks, bro. Appreciate it. But like, I look back and I'm like, oh, I could have done such a better job now. But it was the whole process of learning and just honing in my craft, which is what you want to do. Kind of like in life in general. Don't be scared of the unknown just because you don't know it. Like it's something you can learn. And once you're in it, I'm sure I keep reminding myself of that right now. Like I would love to direct like huge movies one day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no idea like where you process it. And I'm like, wait, these directors are just like normal dudes.
Yeah.
Who just like learned how to do that job. And that's what I like need to remind myself as I, continue my career, my journey.
Yeah.
That's really good. I just want to like say, as we're talking about all this stuff, we're talking about finances and career and how we engage with people and how to be emotionally an adult. What?
Bro, no. Just the fact that we both like turn to you and look and you're just like,
and you're like,
and you're like, what? It's my turn.
You know what's funny is that I fully had something to say, and when you looked at me, I'm like, I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to say. No, but what I'm trying to say is, all of these things we're talking about, what I'm realizing is like, being an adult is not just like this thing that goes along and then one day you're an adult. It's like it's just an upward graph, It's just, you're never really going to be an adult, is what I'm trying to say. It's always just learning, making mistakes, learning. So don't put that pressure on yourself. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever.
Yeah. It's almost like this kind of quote where you either win or you learn, right? Where it's not win or lose, it's win or learn. So I think for us, we do always have that ability to have emotional intelligence, because everyone kind of focuses on IQ, which is just like, okay, this logically makes sense. But there's also an emotional side to adulting that happens where you're actually, oh, wow, I learned a lot from that. Even though I didn't make the best decision logically, emotionally, it did something to my mind and my heart to where I now feel more prepared, because here in the United States, from 0 to 17, you're legally a minor. So you're not supposed to be held liable to provide and protect for yourself. I mean, of course, that's not the case for everyone. Unfortunately, there's some sad circumstances, but for the most part, from 0 to 17, you're considered a minor, and then there should be help for you in your like rearing as a child or teenager or whatever. But then when you hit 18 on, you're now legally an adult. You can get tried as an adult if you commit a crime. Like now it's like time to move out, flee the nest, go to college, get a job, whatever. And if you had a good upbringing from 0 to 17, then you're typically ready to jump out of that nest at 17, 18. But if you didn't, a lot of the heart behind our podcast is to help people kind of catch up, because there's a lot of things that weren't taught, right? There's so many things, just like what we shared earlier in this podcast on just financial intelligence and learning how to take care of yourself and take responsibility. Because I think that's the thing that I always come back to when it comes to adulthood, is when I'm responsible for more than just myself, right? Because whenever I became an adult, it was all about me. It was all like, I'm an adult, I'm in college, I'm working 3 jobs, I'm doing whatever, and I'm just trying to provide for me. But now, as an adult, we're thinking about a family, we're thinking about a house, I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about my community, and so there's so many things that I'm continuing to grow into, which is just like what Zach was saying, where it's not like, okay, I figured out how to take care of myself and now I'm good, right? No, that's not it at all. Now I just have more stuff to take care of.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Can I prompt you?
Bro, put us in the hot seat. Oh, prompt us, bro. Prompt us.
Yeah.
I will
Podcast.
prompt you right now.
Is he saying prompters?
What? Prompt.
Say prompt us.
Okay.
Say prompt
everybody.
us.
Prompters.
No, say
if I can prompt you
say
just
prompt
a
us.
little bit. Prompt us.
I say prompters.
Prompters.
It's so close.
It's the same.
It's so
It's
close.
not the same. It's different. So we've talked about the past. Individually, what do you feel like you need to achieve to feel like an adult?
Wow, that's such a good question, because as you said that, I was like, yeah, I still don't feel like an adult.
Yeah.
I always say that I still feel like I'm 19, which is legally an adult, but you're still like a kid, just kind of like doing your thing. So I think each logical next step that I have in my head is that answer, but knowing that it hasn't been that answer to make me feel like an adult, I don't think, you know what I mean? Like in my head now, what I was literally just thinking is, oh yeah, when I'm a dad, I'll probably feel like more mature and stuff. But I'm going to be the same. I'm the same person. You know what I mean?
Just with a kid?
Yeah. Just with the responsibility of a child, where like, if you were to tell me when I was 19, like, oh, you'll have, purchase some properties and, move to LA and move back and, said what I have done, I would have been like, oh man, like, I'll probably feel like way more mature then, which there is like, maturity that you feel as you grow, but I still feel like young and I still feel like I'm learning things and that I don't know everything. And I think the more I learn and the more I grow and the older I get, the more I realize that I don't know everything.
Yeah. Which is actually, you're probably closer to the truth in that. Like there's people that believe that they know everything. Then there's people that know they don't know everything. And they're probably closer to it than the people that believe that they actually know it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I got what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I'll take it as a compliment.
No problem.
Dude, if you're giving compliments, I'm taking them.
He's a words guy, everyone. I think for me, the thing that would make me feel like an adult is whenever I feel confident in what I'm contributing to society, right? For me, I think that he sees Zach's face. He was like, yeah, dog.
It's like, let's go.
Good. That's a good answer, bro.
And I think for me, because I do agree with you, Gabe, because actually someone messaged my wife and I, and they're like, hey, how do you know what age you're ready to get married, right? I was like, well, I think it's less of an age thing. I think it's more of a maturity thing. Because obviously, like, I've probably met great 17, 18, 19-year-olds that are probably more prepared for marriage than some 50-year-olds. And of course, I'm not like throwing shade at people because I wasn't ready for marriage at a young age, so I had to do a lot of maturing. But for me, I just feel like, as I feel comfortable within my own skin and confident with what I'm contributing, I think that kind of labels as an adult to me, because I'm paying taxes. I'm making sure the roadways are all good. I'm making sure I'm leaving society better than what it was when I got there. And I'm living beyond myself in a responsible way. Is that like okay?
Yeah. No. I think that's great. And I think another piece of advice that I wanted to make sure that I give before we close this thing is to seek and take advice. If you don't know something, or you don't know things.
Yeah.
I don't know things.
You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. So like, I never wanted to go into something blind, acting like I knew what the answers were, and I think for me, that was the fact that, and I don't know, I don't want to like sound like I'm bragging like I had stuff together, because I didn't. I think I was aware that I didn't have stuff together and I needed help. So whether it was my dad or my brother has his master's in accounting and is super like financially literate and stuff like that, where I was way less of that. I go to him for advice, and I just go to other people who are more proficient and knowledgeable in those areas, because I know that they're going to guide me in the right direction. But I don't want their advice to fall on deaf ears. So I want to make sure that I'm seeking the advice and actually taking it and applying it,
Yeah.
So I wanted to use that as a way to segue to Zach, because you, more than anyone else I've met, have taken advice and changed your life. You more than probably anyone else I know have done that. Like it was crazy. I handed you a Dave Ramsey book, like one, I don't know if it was summer or something like that. And then it was, what was it? Summer of like 2018, probably.
Can you explain to the audience what a Dave Ramsey book is?
So Dave Ramsey he's
like financial coach,
financial advice, stuff like that. And just really helps a lot of people who are like stuck in debt. He is the guy to help you out, because he can really coach you through just like breaking out of that financial oppression that can sometimes get a grip on you if you're in debt. And Zach was, kind of opening up to Jess and I when in one of his trips to the States, just talking about like his debt and all those sorts of things. So I ended up giving him a Dave Ramsey book, and literally, not that I forgot about it, but I never really followed up on like if he read it or not. And literally, like, I think it was November. I remember November specifically. We were on the phone one time, and this was like a few months later, and he was just catching me up, and he's like, you were like, bro, I read the book, and I've already like paid off
like half or something.
It was like I've already paid off like $10,000 of my $10,000 of like my 19 grand in debt or something. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What the flip, bro? Like, legit? I was like, I didn't even know if you were going to read the book. You know what I mean? So I would love for you to like touch on that a bit, because you were like a prime example of like taking the advice and applying it hardcore.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that was such a crazy part of my life, and I feel like as we do more podcasts, I can't wait to like talk about all that stuff more. But this in particular, I just got to a point where I realized that I really valued the people around me. Why do I value them? And it was like, because they're doing things that maybe I wish I was doing, or I really look up to them, or whatever it may be, right? This is a testament to you, Gabe, that you do a lot of things with intention. And so even though you're just like, I'm just giving Zach a book, to me, that was like, well, Gabe cares, and that means the world. Gabe's giving me a book to kind of, and you do care. And so for me, I was like, I have to read it. Like, I can't,
that's so.
And I'm not a good reader,
man.
like at all, man. Like I'm really bad at finishing books, But around that time, I was starting to read way more. So I read that Dave Ramsey book, and then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I really went into this place where I was like, if I want to mature in my finances, if I want to mature in this, I have to flip and double down on this. I have to really care about it. And all the time you hear people talk about it like that with fitness. It's like people are like, if you want to be fit, you have to double down on it. You have to do it. And so that was probably, I'm actually so glad you brought that up, because it's probably the first instance where I really went, I need to take the advice that someone's offering to me because they care about me. No, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've had to Google everything, and I've learned how to edit, or I've learned how to make music on YouTube or whatever it may be. But in this situation, the thing I'm struggling with the most, I need to take this advice now. It was kind of like, I know maybe to you it was just you giving me a book, but to me it was like God being like, bro, someone in your world cares, and you need to make sure that you value that as much as they value you. I was like, oh, okay. Wow. So yeah, that was a big change of season. And that doesn't mean that I'm like, you know, financially on it. It's just, it just changed the way that I saw money. And even Chad, I don't know if you know this story, Gabe, but Chad, when I fully paid off pretty much all of my debt, well, I think it was all of it. I mean, Chelsea and I, to be transparent, we do have a bit of debt now because getting married, right? But that was when I paid off all my own debt. And Chad printed me a shirt that said debt free.
No
which is fun.
Dude, I love that.
Yeah. I used to listen to the Dave Ramsey podcast. And for people who paid off a certain amount of debt, they would do what's called a debt-free scream. And so there's a cute little shirt in Australia.
That is great, dude.
So yeah, man, that's just like a little bit of the story. And I'm sure like we'll have podcasts where we talk about finances and that's really exciting. But I hope that's just a little bit of encouragement for someone listening to this going, hey, like I was in a rough place, you know, I was in a really sad place. And as you guys say, like I'm a joyful person, but in that moment I was not good.
Yeah. What kind of debt did you have?
Was the best. What's that?
What kind of debt did you have specifically? I guess just so people know like where.
Yeah, fully.
Those kinds of, if you're okay with like being a little more open with that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So pretty much like I quit my job, and instead of just like getting another job, I was like, I'm going to work this out. I'm going to be freelance. I'm going to work it out. And I was sleeping on couches, which is crazy, for about a year. And I didn't have money to buy food, so I would just buy it with credit.
Oh yeah.
Right. And at some point it just racks up, man. And it's not even like I was living this lifestyle. I wasn't even trying to like buy clothes or anything that I didn't need. It was purely just like my day-to-day living, catching trains, put that on my credit card. And so eventually that racked up. And I also had debt from a business that I started, bought a bunch of film gear. It didn't work. So I took on all the debt from that. And yeah, just these things that it catches up. Money can catch up to you really quick. And I'm sure someone listening to this right now is like, yes, that is so true. Like one day I was good, the next day, 30 grand debt, you know?
Yeah.
And so I was we talked about this in the last podcast, which you should go listen to, but I was in a dark place. And so when you handed me that bit of advice, I was like, this is the lifeline right now. This is it. And it's not like you gave me money. I think that's really important, right? It's not like you went, hey, Zach, here's 10 grand to pay that off. You went, hey, man, here's a resource to learn and to actually grow and develop. And that was probably when I felt like the most, hey, I'm adulting right now.
Yeah, and I think that's huge for those of you who are in, I guess, other positions of leadership out there. Don't be an enabler. Like, don't contribute to other people's bad habits, but contribute to the learning, to help them learn to get rid of those bad habits.
Yeah. And to piggyback off of that, don't allow other people to enable you, you know, because we all have weak points. You know, we all have areas where we're susceptible to maybe deal with peer pressure. Like there was a time hanging out with you and everyone and Seb and everyone where it was kind of like, hey, do you want to go to Disney? And my wife and I don't have Disney passes. And so at that time it would have cost like $170 a person or something like that. It was just like a lot of money.
Expensive.
And we had just gotten married, so we paid all that. We just got a new apartment because we just moved in together. Then that thing happened with our car, which we'll probably share in another podcast, right? And then there was a time when I felt pressure because I wanted to be around my community. I wanted to be a part of it. There was like FOMO, right? And then we decided to go. And I was like, dang, like we shouldn't have done this. Like it was a fun time, but for us at that financial position, that was not a smart move. But I'm not saying you enabled me, right? You know what I mean?
Sorry about that.
I'm just saying it's
classic
just,
peer pressure.
Like I had to kind of know my own boundaries. And you've never like peer pressured at all. The only time you kind of peer pressure me was to join this podcast, and I'm not mad at you. Hey, look at me.
Here we are.
I'm not mad at you.
Dude, look at us.
It's not your fault, Gabe.
Who would have thought?
Not me. But no, it's
Gosh.
I think that could be a good thing for people to understand. Is like it's okay to say no if it's going to put you in a spot to where you're gonna be going against where you want to go. Does that make sense? Because just like what Gabe and Zach are sharing, there's so many resources for us. I mean, there's the whole resource of just learning through trial and error. There's different amazing books. There's different podcasts. There's YouTube University. There's master classes. And I think one of the most valuable resources is your community. You know, I always believe that we should have 3 people in our life. I mean, like 3, but so we should have 3 types of people. We should have someone leading us, people that we're walking arm in arm with, and someone that we're leading. And so that way we always get a taste and feel for learning from other people, but also sharing those learnings too. And having people that we're just like in the trenches with, right? We're figuring things out. And so what was kind of cool in that circumstance is that I feel like you were leading Zach, but I was walking arm in arm with him, which is both are equally important because you gave him a tool to break out of something. And then I had only just broken out of something previously, you know? And so I'm just kind of there. I'm like, bro, hey, I'm here with you. Like, I know it sucks. And so to be able to have a community like that to teach you is just, so powerful. Thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode. And don't forget, you can follow us on our Instagram @PromptUsPodcast, where you can submit your questions for future episodes. Thanks for tuning in.